speakers, and excited about this. Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to round 2 of our in-person meeting today. And I have the honor and the pleasure to bring up our next speaker, Jim Turney. Mr. Turney is an elected official. He is an incumbent and in Altamonte Springs. And I'm proud to invite him up here today to talk about our candidates and our election year and present our folks that ran this year, gave us their labor, gave us their time to expand the party and grow. So without further ado, Jim Turney, welcome up, sir.
Thanks very much. Speaking right here. Hey, everybody. Well, we have had a pretty exciting election year. As you all know, we had a record turnout in the United States and in Florida, and as far as I know, in every county of Florida. Everyone that I've looked at anyway, as literally a record, historic number of voters showed up at the polls, both, I believe it's true, in raw numbers as well as the percentage of people who could have shown up. So that's really an unusual circumstance, but it was foreseeable. Even years ago, we started talking about how 2020 was going to be the year of to Trump or not to Trump another 4 years. And that's where all this polarization is coming from that we're living through. And sort of the opposite of 2016 from the Libertarian Party point of view. We had, in 2016, both candidates were set records for unfavorable opinion of them both, and there wasn't as much strong feeling, especially about Donald Trump in some quarters. So we ended up with a situation where people really weren't going to the polls just about Donald Trump alone. That wasn't the main motivator. So as a result, the Libertarian Party, plus we had good candidates for president, so we attracted a large number of voters. But 2022 was pretty predictably going to be a year where everybody felt it is important to signal if they wanted to Trump or not to Trump another 4 years. And that's what we saw. And here in Florida, it impacted us more than in most places because we are the quintessential evenly divided state. We already were even before 2000, but the 2000 presidential elections made us world famous for close calls, and we have proceeded even as recently as 2018, as you all probably know, to have very close call statewide elections. Multiple statewide elections in 2018 went to recounts because they were so close. Well, that means that in Florida, it's really hard to convince people not to vote for the lesser of two evils because they think, oh, well, if just a few of us don't make that calculation, then, we're going to maybe make somebody we really are afraid of, take your choice who that is, the next president or continue to be president. So it was a tough year for the Libertarian Party everywhere, but especially in Florida. And it was foreseeable. And we have some evidence to prove it. And, the vote totals were lower, as well as even for our local candidates. What really happened there, just in case you haven't already figured it out, if you went down to if you did any poll work like I did, I worked a lot of early day polls as well as election day polls. People would drive up, they would see the Republican and the Democrat, and me, in my case, when I was there, holding signs, and they would see always the Republicans and the Democrats had a sign that said voter guide, and people would stop in front of that, whichever was their favorite party, ask for the voter guide, and then they'd go in and they'd fill in the little circles all the way down the ballot, as it said, as it suggested. And those included nonpartisan candidates. That's why they call it, by the way, a voter guide, because it's illegal for them to endorse nonpartisan candidates. So they call it a voter guide so that they can just suggest nonpartisan candidates who just happen to be members of their party. Take your choice again, which one. So that's why Stephen noticed, I don't know if you noticed, but one of the things in his presentation was we need to have a voter guide. Well, we can talk about that more, but at another time. I'm here to talk about candidates, and I'm explaining what happened to our candidates in case you're wondering why I'm talking about all of these, this record that we set. Because first of all, a lot of people who went down to vote just wanted to vote for president. They didn't even vote down ballot. So we had, in the counties that I've looked at, which is only a couple at this point, I'm still doing the deep dive into the election results, but a couple of the counties that I've looked at had massive undervotes. That means people who just voted for president, maybe some other, any left out vote where somebody doesn't vote is called an undervote. So you could, for example, they could have voted for everything except maybe one constitutional amendment. That would still be considered an undervote on that constitutional amendment. So you have to break it down per option that's on the ballot. But anyway, for local offices, a lot of people didn't vote. When people did vote, they often voted with the voter guide. So it was a really tough year for libertarians. But we still managed to get, out of 9 candidates we had at the beginning of the year, or at the beginning of the campaign season, we had 2 that were reelected without opposition. So that's good. I hope to be one in 2021 like that, but we'll see. But it worked last year. I scared them away last year somehow. I didn't get an opponent, so I got waved in. And in case you didn't know my history, by the way, in Altamont Springs, I first ran for city commission there in 2017, and I had an opponent. I had an incumbent that had been there 10 years, and I managed to scare him off somehow too. We had gamed out all sorts of different possibilities in the planning and the campaign, and never did we contemplate that he would withdraw. But he withdrew, so I kind of got waved in on that one. So re-elect Jim is a real thing, but it's not as easy as it sounds, as I've so far been able to get by with, let's put it that way. So we were really lucky. Tony Busby was actually originally appointed by the governor when there was a vacancy on the Osceola County Soil and Water Conservation Board. And so he was actually running for the first time and didn't draw an opponent. And I don't see him here, but is Tony here? I don't think he is. I don't see him, but he said he was probably going to make it today. So I'll have to give him a call and congratulate him later. Meanwhile, and we'll do that in a minute for him too, but we also got elected by, without an opponent, Dennis Misegoy, who is was elected as part of our First Step program, the first one we did. He got elected to his community development district, CDD. We don't have many of them in a lot of parts of the state, but there's a lot of them down in South Florida, Miami-Dade. And he was elected to his community. It's sort of like a HOA, but one that actually has taxing and regulatory authority. So that's why it's a official public election there. It's a little different. And he became the chair of that. I have a live report of his campaign. If you'll play that, this is Dennis Misegoy telling us about how he ended up being reelected without opponent. Grab this microphone and take it over there. But earlier we had the audio on, so I don't know what happened. Try it again.
What I've been up to this last year. After having first been elected to a seat on my local CDD board.
Actually, you know what? Let's play through Mark Dunlop's laptop. Does that work with his presentation? It should only take a few minutes to set it up, but if you want to do that, then people can hear it.
Maybe he'll have to get involved because he's got a passport. Okay, well, I'll move on because we don't have a lot of time. We'll hear from Dennis again in a minute. So we got sound problems there of some kind. It's embarrassing being an audio guy to have sound problems during my presentation. But anyway, let's see. We do have the video already on Mark's laptop. We were going to play it from there, but we couldn't get into his laptop, and he wasn't here at the time to give us his password. So anyway, so we went to mine. Let's see. So we had a bunch of good candidates, and some of them were, let's say, practice runs. We're also going to hear from Austin Latin, who we've got a short video from to tell us about his race. He is a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, and he called me up in the spring and said, I want to run for office, and we started looking for an office for him to run for, and we found the airport authority in his county, which is a bit of an obscure. And so that's the kind of thing we're looking for. That's what we need to try to find for other candidates in 2021, 2022. That's a good start. He got great practice. He really made a tremendous impression in his county, but he had two opponents. One is registered Republican, one is registered Democrat. Guess what the voter guide said? People went there, had no idea there was even an airport authority in their county. And they go, well, I got a voter guide here that says this guy to vote for. So they colored in the circle next to that candidate's name. And so Austin didn't do very well, but he did actually do very well in terms of the impression that he created in his community. And it was a fantastic experience for him and also for the Libertarian Party in that area. And so we don't have an affiliate there, but we probably will soon because Libertarians there started coalescing around his campaign since it was well run. Another candidate who made an incredible impression in the county, and right here in my county, so I really was tuned to his campaign, is Andre Klass. They say keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Well, I really do that, and I know the value of building relationships. So I spend a lot of effort and make good friends and enjoy being around them that are leaders in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party in my county. They were all coming to me saying, Jim, you guys got a fantastic candidate. We think he has a chance to win. Everybody's talking about him, and in a good way. Even his Republican opponent refused to say anything bad about him because his impression, he was so good, like she was afraid that there would be some really bad repercussions, and she's probably right about that. The Democrat almost endorsed Andre. He was so welcoming, but they both had the voter guide in their favor. And so Andre didn't do as well as we had hoped because of so many people. He did a great job of fundraising, though. He did so well that he actually had 4 big highway billboards in Seminole County, 4 of them. He had, by the way, there's an interesting story there, but I won't get into it. But we did Facebook advertising, or his campaign did Facebook advertising. Facebook kicked it off. they terminated his advertising account during the heart of the campaign, right when the mail ballots went out. But we got it turned back on, but they said, well, we don't know why, but it got, sorry, what else can we say? And then when they turned it back on, they did they're still explaining it, but they're trying to say that the reason it didn't get put out very much, it didn't get seen, they didn't display it very much, even though the money was there. You know, we've given you the money, put it out for us now that you've turned us back on. They're claiming something about some fancy auction excuse that we were outbid or some weird thing. It's a complaint in progress, I'll put it that way. So we'll see how that goes, but it's really strange story there about, so actually we didn't get a chance to spend all the money Andre raised in Seminole County because of these sort of things that were happening. But Andre did a great job of fundraising, did a great job of leaving a very positive impression in the community. And in fact, I'll save that for a minute for now. How are we doing over there? We good? So I'm going to stop talking about these other candidates and let you hear from Dennis, and then we're going to hear from Austin as well in a minute.
Good afternoon, my friends. I was invited to come out and speak to you guys today, but unfortunately conflicts made it impossible, so I was asked if I could instead give you guys a report on what I've been up to this last year. After having first been elected to a seat on my local CDD Board of Supervisors back in 2016, and with my term set to end here in 2020, I was inspired at the start of this year to go and run to really shoot for the moon and go and run for the U.S. House seat in the 26th District. Getting such a late start, though, meant that I was trying to raise the money necessary to be viable, even beyond qualifying, between February and April, which really wasn't possible in the era of COVID. And given the other curveball for 2020 started my family, it really turned out to be, ended up being best that it didn't happen this year. Still, I'm now set up with my candidate committee, registered with the FEC, and other pieces in place, along with new skills and knowledge that will greatly facilitate my ability to get an early start in the next election cycle, and to be much more effective than I could have possibly been running this year. In the interim, I turned my focus towards my current role as a CDD supervisor and chairman, where I was re-elected unopposed this year. The last few months there have been dominated by another project proposal, where I stood again as the lone voice of opposition on the board, but backed by a strong wave of passionate constituents. After numerous meetings and changing proposals, our efforts to oppose the project finally bore fruit, even beyond my greatest expectations. At a meeting just this week that ran over 2 hours filled with raised voices, arguments, and interruptions, my fellow supervisor who had actually spearheaded the project proposal was moved to back down, and the rest of the board followed suit. Beyond notching a victory for fiscal responsibility, common sense, and the will of our constituents, it's been a great opportunity for me to strengthen my relationship with those in the community. As I look forward to pursuing higher office, having the support and admiration of constituents who can attest to what kind of a representative I am and can be will be a key asset in selling myself at the next level. Thank you again to everyone who supported me in my short-lived congressional campaign. I'm sorry I couldn't make it this time, and I look forward to the next time we can be together in person. Thank you.
He's got a beautiful array of trophies there behind him, and one of these days we're going to hopefully crowd his shelf a little more with some trophies for running for office. But and winning. One other thing, he had a button like this on, the Libertarian Party of Florida, LPF button, but some of our people are going to win one of these other buttons that I'm proud to wear that's issued by the National Libertarian Party, and it says Municipal and County Elected, what does it say? I'm reading upside down here. Libertarian county and municipal officials. So if you get elected at the county or municipal level, you get one of these pins. So I proudly wear that as a elected libertarian at the municipal level. But we elected Tony Busby at the county level, so he's getting one of those pins. I saw that was mailed to him a few weeks ago, and he's getting sworn in, I think, this week, if I'm not mistaken, or next week in Osceola County. We also had, I mentioned Austin Latin made a brief report for us about his campaign that I told you about for Airport Authority. Are you ready to hit the play button on that? Yes, sir. Perfect. Let's hear that report.
What's up, everyone? My name is Austin Lee Lantane. Lantane kind of rhymes with plantain or maybe champagne. That's usually the easiest way to kind of describe the last name. People have a hard time trying to pronounce it. I recently ran for the Airport Authority Board Group 4 seat here in St. Augustine, St. Johns County. It was a non-party race. I ran against three other candidates. But the very first lesson I think I learned throughout this entire experience is that there's no such thing as a non-party race. Two of my opponents were endorsed by the Republican Party. They were on the voter slate card for the county GOP, and the other candidate was endorsed by the Democrats, and he was on the Democratic voter guide card. So going against that machine was obviously a pretty big challenge, and I would call it a machine because I had countless questions of people asking me. The most common question I got from people was, are you a Republican or Democrat? Not even what party do you belong to, but are you one of those two? So overcoming that was a huge challenge, even though it was, in theory, a non-party race. Other lessons learned that I would say from this entire experience was that 2020 was an interesting year to kind of come out and learn how to run a race. I relied heavily on the social media side of things, coupling that with about $4,000 that I raised, and I had to reach out to over 200,000 registered voters because this election encompasses the entire county, even though there are people that live over 20 miles away from the airport itself that are voting on this matter and never see the airport, never even drive past the airport to or from work or for their favorite restaurant, grocery store, etc. So it was hard to kind of get that message out and interact with those voters, especially on such a limited budget, and to get them to care about a race that they don't even really know exists for a board that they probably have no idea exists either. So those were obviously some of the challenges, but certainly a lot of lessons and good takeaways, and most of it was that people were very receptive to, I think, the libertarian message. And that's important. I became known as, oh, you're the eminent domain guy, which I didn't mean to be, but just because I think that was an issue that stuck in the last decade or so, because there were eminent domain issues with this airport, and now it's kind of re-bringing that up with visions for the airport to grow. And I said, hey, I definitely don't want to overstep the rights of those who own property in and around the airport, and we're definitely not going to utilize eminent domain to kind of make the wishes grow true for what the airport wants to be in the future. And just kind of putting that message out there forced other candidates to kind of answer questions regarding eminent domain. So even though that became my identity, it was a libertarian message that was received very well. And through that, I was able to interact and meet with other libertarians. We actually created a St. Augustine libertarian group, super unofficial, but the first thing we did was we adopted a highway right off of downtown St. Augustine. So we're excited that we're going to have some visual out there. We've already cleaned once, and we're going to have to clean a few more times a year, which is actually going to be a great opportunity for us to kind of give back to the community. We talked together in terms of trying to create a St. Johns County affiliate, and all of those things I would make this entire experience a huge success because of all of those things. I would say lastly, in terms of lessons learned for this experience, was probably not being afraid to ask questions. I reached out to Jim, I reached out to Andre in terms of the LPF, and kind of asking how they did certain things in the past, or in Andre's race, which was one of my favorite races to kind of follow along outside of St. Johns County. But I also leaned heavily on my brother, who's a registered LPF voter as well, and he was initially just my treasurer, but kind of turned into almost a campaign manager of sorts. So always bouncing ideas off of him, kind of figuring out how we could interact with more people, and we were able to, I think, successfully do that. We kind of met expectations, didn't necessarily exceed and persevere in terms of where we wanted to be. We knew winning was going to be a long shot, but I think we definitely shook up the race, which was fun, and was able to get the message out there in terms of what personal economic freedom could be in relation to an airport, which is sometimes probably a challenge for many candidates to kind of get across. So overall, a huge success, and I attributed that to the LPF as well as my brother and those that were around me to kind of help make things work. So looking forward to meeting all of you at some point in time. I know it's hard to interact just with you online, and I'm excited to get more involved with the party moving forward. So thank you all very much.
Well, we do have some candidates here to give reports. Since we're talking about county level candidates lately, I want to have everybody welcome a county level a candidate here, Davey Parrish, to give his report on his campaign from Columbia County. Does anybody remember what his campaign theme was?
How could you not?
All right. I don't know what to do with this. Sure.
So my name, so my name is Davey Parrish, and I ran for tax collector in Columbia County in a partisan race. Before I get to what I've written, I was the only candidate here in Florida that was endorsed by the Libertarian Party Radical Caucus, and I am very proud of that, which you will probably know. But so running for office isn't something I ever really saw myself doing. I even told Jim Turney I had no interest in running for office about 5 months before I filed the paperwork. I could give you a bunch of lies on why I decided to run, but honestly, I just wanted the troll in real life. I had no interest in winning this election. In fact, the founders of the Libertarian Party never intended our candidates to win elections. Their entire point when the Libertarian Party was founded was to spread the ideals of liberty. It was not to gain power. So when I called my county supervisor of elections office and got the list of offices up for election this cycle and heard that the office of tax collector was a partisan race and only needed 404 signatures to make it on the ballot, I had to do it. But it turns out you can troll and run a radical message, as you see, and the other side it says, "We are not government property," and still hit 17.46%. I did not get much of the Democrat protest vote in my deep red county either. The leaders of the local Democrats endorsed my Republican opponent. Yeah. But I did not have the time or energy to put into the campaign like some of the others here in Florida. And if I did, I would be interested in what the numbers would have been then. But, sorry, I lost my place. But when libertarian candidates here in Florida normally get about 2 to 5% of the vote, which is still not bad for a partisan race, because partisan races are just terrible for us, or the minor party in that county. Not good for them either. But you can run on a strong message and get in your face with people. They will tend to at least ask you questions. And of course, they see taxation and stuff and they want to talk about the roads. Well, I don't really care to talk about infrastructure. I'm not the smartest guy to talk to about that. I can just direct them to Friedman's Machinery of Freedom, and he can explain it much better than I could. But when I talk to people about taxation and theft, it's a argument on morality. Is taxation moral? And it turns out, after that conversation, most people are on board. So, on the fundraising aspect, I was I did what I could, get enough money to get one sign made, and I posted it online. I put it up right next to my opponent's sign. Posted it online with just some offhand comment, and ended up going kind of viral inside the Liberty Sphere. And I was hoping and budgeting hard, hoping I could raise about $1,000 to run my entire campaign. Well, I ended up raising almost $3,000 because libertarians are fairly generous when they see something that they resonate with. So I was able to put up about 10 large banners, 10 smaller signs, and about 100 of these yard signs, along with a table of my county fair. I lost most of my signs, though, so I have less to pick up. But But anyway, so campaigning and running a political party are very similar. It's a lot of work you never expect was going to come up, because in politics something changes every day and you've got something else to deal with. But with almost 3 times my initial budget, I was able to do a lot of things I wasn't planning on. I also got, Facebook told me no, I couldn't run paid political ads. So they denied that. But even though I had 3 times the budget, I would have preferred to have the people working on the campaign, because the volunteers matter much more than the money. So if you've got someone running or you're going to run, help them out. It's really needed, just like it is in our state party. So that's it.
We don't have a big trophy that he deserves, but we do have this nice plaque of appreciation to give to our candidate for Columbia County tax collector, Mr. Taxation is Theft of Florida. All right. Davey Paris. There you go. Close to the cameras there. Thank you so much for running. Appreciate that. Okay. We have one other candidate here, but at the state level. We actually had 2 candidates run at the state level for State House. Joe Hanush from Volusia County, who's not here, but we have a report, and he did submit a report, but I don't have it available on video right now, unfortunately. Maybe we can get it there. Sorry? For Ken? Yeah, no, for Joe Hanush. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll see what I can do. Anyway, we have Ken Willie, who ran for the House in his district. And Ken, would you like to come up and give us a report?
Sorry, Dave.
It's all right. So I came here, I had no idea what I was going to talk about, so I sat down, I opened up Google Sheets, and 75 slides later, I promise it won't be death by PowerPoint.
Give me a second, I'm sorry.
So mainly I just took a bunch of screenshots from my phone and threw them on some slides so I could have something to focus on and not stand here.
They're cheering for you.
Yeah. So I'll jump ahead a little bit while we're waiting. And one of the things I want to talk about later is the things that worked. And one of my best investments was this hat. I got so many compliments on it. It started so many conversations. I met a lot of libertarians that I had never met before that lived in my county, in my district. And I went to Ace Hardware yesterday. I was wearing this. The checkout lady and the guy ahead of me in line both told me they really liked my hat. So if you're running, Dan Berman is selling these. It's a great deal. Highly recommend it. Also in my area, I'm not sure exactly where he's living now, but we have a local libertarian who owns a cardboard box factory. And he also has the equipment to do signs. So he was my biggest donor, and he actually donated 200 signs along with the wire stands. And I'm hoping to turn that into something that we can help other candidates with in the future. So this was actually my first sign that went out. This was my introduction slide. Next. So this is the area that I'm in. If you see Florida 18 there, kind of the lower left part. Next slide. This is a closer. This is the northern, about 1/3 of Clay County. And that's, the other 2/3 has far less people in it. So this is your population center. Next. Demographics, voting age population is, total population is 154,000 people. So it breaks down a little bit more, but we're 75% white. It's a typical rural Florida, North Florida. Next. This is off the Supervisor of Elections website. We have a total of, this is for the whole county, not just my district, but 166,000 registered voters. Republicans are 90,000 of that. So it's an extremely red district. We've had several chairmen of the RPOF come from Clay County. Speakers of the House, high-powered. We actually, in my district, we had both the chairman of the Senate and House Appropriations Committees. That's Clay County. So next. This is a ballot. This is the first time there's been a Democrat running in that district in who knows how long. And of course, with the W, I ended up at the bottom. Next. This is a guy that the main opponent, the Republican, that is his website. You can tell he was not expecting any real opposition. If you click on the little menu button up there, you get a link to contact him, which he did not answer. I was told, just reach out to him. So I used a couple of burner email accounts and wrote, actually it was about 3 of them, wrote well-worded questions, sent them, never heard anything back. You have a donate link, and he had a bio. Nothing on issues, absolutely nothing. We cannot hold him accountable for going back on his word because he never said anything. Next. This is typical of what we go through. The Republican gets the endorsement. Democrat has a big question mark by his name, and I did not even appear on that. Joe Hanush also was completely left out. And actually, Sam Garrison should have gotten an AQ, which means that you've never held office, so they can only rate you or grade you based on your questionnaire. He has never held office and got an A and an endorsement. Next. I did give a lot more attention than I thought. Florida politics, one of their elections guys reached out to me. I filled out a whole questionnaire, got my picture taken, so I appreciate that. One thing was that this election was for an open seat. The incumbent was term limited out, so I did receive a lot more attention. Next. I got one endorsement, and unfortunately it came on, I think, the day before the election. But I was happy to get it. I appreciate it. It means a lot to me. When I got the call from Florida Can, it was actually James Ray was the person that called me and asked me if I would support certain things. Next. So this is the 3rd time I ran. These are the results from 2014. So you can see I got 18.6% with 9,525 votes. Next. This is 2016. I was at the bottom of the page. So I got 18.21% with 14,000 votes. That was a presidential election. Next. This year, I got 3,093 votes because we had a three-way race. I'm a little upset that it dropped down to 3.21. Originally it was 3.22 and my birthday is March 22nd, so I was kind of hyped about that until I saw this. But also, if you notice the undervotes, the people that skipped over that, I almost came in fourth. But with a three-way race, I know that 3,093 votes, that I actually earned those. And in the entire county, we have about 500 registered libertarians, about 350 roughly in my district. So I still managed to gain a lot more votes than just the libertarians. In fact, our congressional seat was also open, and we had 10 Republicans running in the primary for that, and one of those candidates told me that he voted for me. I also had several very Democratic people that I had known for a while that told me that they voted for me. So it works to get out there and talk to people. Next. So what did I learn? Next. So this one on the left. Surround yourself with integrity and a true supporter of our first responders. This guy is obviously very Republican. That's Sam Garrison standing next to him. Now, I responded that, wait, go back. I responded to him that, you know, I actually was a first responder. In the Navy, I was an EMT. I did level A hazmat training in the big moon suit. I taught Marine infantrymen tactical combat casualty care. Sam's a lawyer with a specialty in municipal law. Brad's next post was something about supporting people who support police. He's also had a lot of veterans. Sam's never been in the military. I spent 20 years in, so what you really learn here is that matters as long as the person they're supporting is a Republican. When you have the libertarian, veteran, first responder, all of that, they don't care. On the right, you know, this is a group that I heard about when they endorsed my opponent. So you notice up at the top it says with Scotty Taylor, he was in the primary elected as a state committeeman for the Republican Party of Florida. So a lot of these groups, they're just going to endorse the most likely to win. They don't really care. Next. I had a hater. This is actually his profile picture on Facebook. And he was really my best volunteer. When I would post something on Facebook, he was always there to jump on it and tear it apart, and he kept a lot of what I wrote high up in the groups. And he was always asking, yes or no, do libertarians support unregulated guns, unregulated drugs, and completely open borders? And I would give him a long, detailed answer, and he would get so mad because I wouldn't say yes or no. But it allowed me to take that stand that I had and present it in a detailed fashion. So I believe that free people should be able to live and work wherever they wish. I believe that all gun laws are infringements on the natural right to protect natural right to life, liberty, and property, and the right to protect your life, liberty, and property. So this guy, he kept me on my toes, and I actually told him one time they needed to give me his contact information so I could report it as an in-kind donation. Next. Being a open seat, I had a lot of groups contact me because they were focusing on those districts that had an open seat. This is some of the groups that contacted me. I forgot to put the FOP on there. I did not make their interview. Florida Ag Coalition, that's a big group of a lot of smaller interest groups in the agriculture industry. So if you answer their questionnaire, they send it out to a lot of people. Florida Cares, Families Against Mandatory Minimums, got a really great response from them. They want criminal justice reform, prison reform, and I pretty much agreed with just about everything that they were asking. Another one was, I think it was Florida Makes. It's a manufacturing, not quite the Builders Association, but it had some to do with construction. And one of the guys told me that we were kindred spirits as far as libertarians. So I really thought that that was interesting, that in my previous times running, I never got this many questionnaires. Next. So what do I do in the future? Go. I'm really considering going into a political PAC. You learn a lot of, I hate partisanship. And there's a lot of groups that wouldn't even look at me because of my party. And, you know, I ended up helping a Republican who was running for the state Senate seat because the woman we're getting is the wife of our previous senator. But I can't expect them to help me because of loyalty oaths and garbage like that. So I want to move into a little bit different type of activism. I'm really burned out on being a candidate, especially when you get 3.21%. So next. I don't know if you remember this from 2018. Senate Republicans received jars of tar and feathers after their gun vote. It was covered by these different outlets. The people that wrote the articles are the journalists that end up in the Influence magazine. That was actually my idea. Ryan Ramsey was in Tallahassee, and I was on the phone with, or not on the phone with him, but on Facebook or something. We were talking about these different ideas, and I said, you know, we need to put together some tar and feathers and give it to him. And he actually did it. And when I told my state legislators, they didn't find it quite as funny. But this is the direction that I think I want to go in, is calling these people out, not letting them sit around and feel like they don't have to put any effort. Next. I picked up a homeless guy on the side of the road, and he helped me hold this banner. So that's my, thanks, Chris. I appreciated that. Chris Rose came all the way from Alachua County, and I had this made up. This is our two representatives and our state senator that represent Clay County. And this is at a school where they were having a candidate debate or a candidate forum or something before the primary. This was in 2018. And I only had one person that didn't find it humorous, and that was the chair of the local party who was a commander in the sheriff's department and tried to throw us off the school grounds. So I immediately got this picture taken and posted it on Facebook, and I had like 1,200 views in no time at all. So I got a lot of positive comments on that, and it cost me, it was like a 8-foot-long banner. I think I paid about $100 for it out of my pocket. So next one. This was also from 2018. Write in none of the above for U.S. Senate because our choices were so horrible. And I ended up at these, I spent about $100. I think it was about $1 each. Mailed them all over the state. Next. That might be it. Is that it? Okay. It was only 22. But this is the direction that I'm looking at. To kind of kick those politicians in the seat of the pants and make them start talking and talking to the constituents.
Well, I'm going
Thank
to be
you.
talking to you about that because I've got an idea for a plaque too, but we're going to have to work together. Ken, I want to present you with a plaque too to hang on your wall, and thank you so much for for your campaign and for making this. You third run? Third run. All right. Congratulations. Ken Lewis. Lanice, before you sit down, I want to introduce Lanice Joseph to everybody. I think this is her first meeting here.
One thing.
Oh,
Whoever donates the most today can have my sign.
We're getting ready to put on the next. I wanted to recognize Andre Klass's #1 supporter, and she's a constituent of mine in Altamont Springs as well. So, but Andre Klass and Lanice did such a great job helping Andre that I asked her to give Andre his certificate of appreciation so that she can hand it to him. It gives her another excuse to go say hello to Andre and work with him. Thank you so much for helping Andre as like you did, Lanice. Appreciate it a lot. There you go. You can hold that up. And there's Andre's certificate. We have one here for everybody. I'm going to make sure they get it. We're going to have to run now because we've got the next speaker coming up, and I am going to run over here and do some technical things while he gets introduced. And so thank you very much for supporting your Libertarian Party of Florida candidates in 2020. Stand by. We got more coming in 2021. Don't go anywhere.
All right. Is he ready for us? Let's give another round of applause to our candidates this cycle. It's not easy running for public office. It really isn't. And the folks that came out, that put everything on the line, we owe it to them, definitely. And I appreciate every single one of them that came out and ran this year. We're going to run even more candidates next year and the year after. I'm very much looking forward to it. And in a few minutes, we're going to introduce our next speaker. I just want to get the go ahead and make sure we're all set. Ladies and gentlemen, earlier this year, I remember Chaz Sanders actually sent me a link to a YouTube channel of a gentleman who I hadn't heard before. This gentleman served time in a federal penitentiary for 10 years. He's a real-life Andy Dufresne. As I watched his videos in the middle of COVID, his words, his story, everything was like a fire hose of reality. I really got to be enthralled in what he had to talk about, what he had to say. And as libertarians, we are the people who are for the criminal justice reform. We're the folks who are for prison reform. We're the ones that have been talking about this stuff for the last 50 years. We've been the #1 voice on the front line for the entire time. And I'm very, very happy to introduce our next guest who, by the way, just surpassed 1 million subscribers on YouTube. And I want to give a round of applause and a warm welcome to Mr. Larry Lawton, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, for those of you with sensibilities, easily offended, I would say just leave the room now. But I know that most of you that survived Mark Whitney at the last convention, you should be okay. So without any further ado,
I don't know, is this working? Or
does it work?
is this working?
Can you guys hear?
Can
me?
everybody hear me?
Beautiful.
All right, good. Hi, thank you very much for having me. First of all, I just jumped, and I told Steve I could get out of here because we do have a celebration. We were the fastest company to hit 1 million subscribers. We did it in a year. We got 70 million views, and it's just because I tell the truth. And people say, what do you mean? I said, first of all, a little bit of my background. I was the biggest Jew robber in the United States. I robbed $15 to $18 million. I spent 12 years in federal prison. I was strapped down naked, beaten, and pissed on by guards. I was in the hole for 3 years. Why am I not crazy? I'm probably a little crazy, but I'm a survivor. And I went to prison in 1996. I got out in 2007. I usually start a lot of speaking engagements. I ask anybody, can they hide a knife up their ass? I get that. Very quiet and holy shit. And I said, well, I had to do that to survive. And they go, what do you mean? Take a toothbrush holder. Take a steel shank, you put it in the toothbrush holder, you put masking tape on it, you insert it in your rectum. You walk through 3 metal detectors. What do you think happens on the first metal detector? Beep, beep, beep. You get pulled out of line, they strip search you, totally bend down, bend over, can't find anything. They don't know if you have a bullet in you or a knee, fake knee. They say, get out of here. You get to the yard. You have your friends, you squat down, you take it out, you have a wooden handle along the pathway. Why wooden? Because guards are smart. They will run metal detectors throughout the whole yard when we're all locked down. But if it's wood, they won't find it. If the steel was in there, they would find it. So what happens is you get it, you take the wood, you put your steel shank, and you have something to save your life. I was stabbed twice. I stabbed 2 people, and I've been shot. So I am lucky to be here and happy. Now, was I guilty? Absolutely. Absolutely. I made a lot of money. I was hooked up with John Gotti and the Gambinos. I wouldn't tell on anybody. I don't believe it. I think a person's word should mean something. I knew Sammy Gravano. I knew all of them. Now I speak to young people, and I've developed the #1 program in the country helping young people make better choices. This will fuck you up, excuse my French. I'm the only ex-con in the United States who's an honorary police officer, sworn in. Thank you. Sworn in by the, I was sworn in by the head of Missouri's Department of Law Enforcement for the whole state. And I'm the only ex-con ever to be recognized on the floor of the United States Congress, but I won't get into Congress right now because they're more criminals than I was. So, we'll keep going because I was asked to speak here on that was a little bit of a background on me, but I was asked by Stephen to speak on criminal justice. And the first words to Stephen was, Stephen, do you know I'm going to tell it like it is? He says, yes, so just do what you're going to do. Well, both parties are fucked up. That's #1. And I can go into the details because I speak on this from when Reagan did the war on drugs, which is a big failure. Clinton could have fixed it, but he made it worse. And now we're in a position, we're not only the most incarcerated country in the world, we are the most incarcerated country in the world by pure numbers. Think of that. China's got 1.3 billion people and has less inmates than we do. Now people say, oh, but they kill them. That's not true. They have a higher suicide rate because they have a honor system and a system where people they feel like they dishonored their family when they did something. If you really look up the pure numbers, it pisses me off when I see all the politicians talk about human rights of other countries. As a man who was literally, and it was documented, strapped down naked and pissed on and peed on by guards, and it took me about 5 years before I said I wouldn't kill the person. Because now I really say I want to pray for the person, because how sad is their life if they got to abuse somebody who is in the worst part of their life. So I start looking at things differently. I'm a little bit older now, I'll be 60 years old, and I don't count it. I'm really 47 because I take away the time I was in prison. I was in from 96 to 2007. So I had 4 12-year sentences and got my law degree. So I now don't like lawyers, so if there's any lawyers in here, maybe we're gonna have, no. I did a lot of legal work for 10 years. I could talk everything about a 2255 and 924Cs and the gun charges and the federal law. And when I went to prison, I was in maximum security prison. So when I was on Con Air, I got frequent flyer miles on Con Air. That plane system's not the greatest when you're walking around like this in shackles and everything else, and they don't let you. I used to tell the young kids, they come, hey, oh, gee, man, you want that food? Because in the federal system, they come and get you at 12 o'clock at night. They bring you to a holding cell. Now, the federal air marshals are going to pick you up at 6 in the morning. So you're just hanging out in the cells, and here we are. They'll feed you a sandwich, a bologna sandwich, which is yellow and green and every color you can think. It's like a rainbow piece of meat. So, and they'll give you an apple, and they'll give you a jungle juice. I used to tell the kids, I said, don't eat that. Man, don't you want it? You don't want that? I said, don't eat it. Trust me. You don't want to be on this plane and eat that shit. They don't let you get up and take your shackles and handcuffs off to go to the bathroom. So, you used to see the kids, I said, go ahead, eat it. And you're on Con Air for 12, 15 straight hours, never moving. Because the plane goes up, like the hubs are in Oklahoma. The plane will go up, come down in Atlanta. I was in USP Atlanta at the time. We had a murder a month for 18 months, the worst prison in the United States. The plane would come down, they'd call your name, you don't go off on, you go to the next stop, you go to the next stop, you go to the next stop. They might take you on what they call diesel therapy. And they put you on that plane, and guess what? You end up where you got on the plane. And you say, what is going on? You want to talk about a waste of money? Wow. But you survive it. So I tell the kid, don't eat that, because you have to go to the bathroom. I would watch the kids, and sadly I saw a kid die on a plane because I guess something ruptured or whatever it was, and he ended up dying. So I look at those little things and say, why is Larry Lawton here? Why is Larry Lawton here? Well, when I got out of prison and I decided to see all the destruction of young people, and I didn't look at it like, oh, the kid's a bad kid. Yes, I have a shirt that we call it says, I don't believe in bad people, I believe in bad choices. I've been around a lot of people, and don't get me wrong, there are people in prison that you don't ever want to get out because they'll kill somebody, they're psychopaths, or whatever they are. But 95%, 99% are people who had addictions, had mental illnesses. I could go on and on with what it is that makes these people the way they are. And I look at my life growing up in the Bronx and Brooklyn in the gangster world, robbing cars, going to the service, did great. Till I got hurt in the service, got out, right back into Brooklyn, right with the mobsters, figuring out scams, figuring out everything else, became the biggest jewel robber. My first jewel robbery was a setup. Wow, this guy wants insurance money, I'll take $150,000, good. Then I said, wait a minute, this is too easy. I got sucked into the life like most people get sucked into anything. But as an older person, I looked at young people coming to prison, and the destruction I saw was just sad as anything. I don't know if anybody in this room knows who Bill Dillon is. Bill Dillon was acquitted of murder. He did 27 years in prison. He did not do it. He was a 21-year-old kid right here in Brevard County, and that young man was gang raped by 5 people his first day in prison. I can't even imagine what went through his head as a person who was innocent. I know how bad it was as a person who was guilty. And I always say that my first thing is, listen, I'm not here to say I didn't belong in prison. Did I belong to be strapped down naked, beaten, broken up, beaten once a month for 11 straight months, and they call it 4-point, and then guards take his dick out and pee on you? Nobody deserves that. That's not what America or any country, that's a third world country shit. And now on my YouTube channel, I actually go, and I just was with Raphael Rowe, who has a show world's worst prisons, and he goes into them, and I just did the interview with him. And we talked about prisons, because he was an innocent man in prison, and now he does. So, I wanted to call about the prison system, what's wrong with it, and or the criminal justice system. I'll take a case right here, you guys probably know it. Right here in Brevard County, we had a veteran who was killed in the Brevard County Jail. Bullshit. That should never, ever, ever happen. He had a mental illness, he had PTSD. I don't know if anybody here is in the military. I'm retired military, actually, from when I got hurt in the service. And I can tell you what happened was an atrocity. First of all, our jails are becoming mental institutions, and that's a big problem, number one. Number two, they're not training people. But I'm going to get into how we can fix it. And it can be fixed for no money. Hello? Yeah. Hello? No money. No money. No money. We can fix it right now. We spend $1 trillion a year on that. You know what numbers? First of all, private prisons, out. How can we take profit off of our people's misery? It drives me nuts. I don't care what you did in this world. If we, the society, believes that's wrong and we set the laws, we should not put a company who wants to make profit on keeping you there, because they don't have any ultimate reason to make sure you are rehabilitated. Because when you come back, they're getting X amount of dollars a day and the food and everything else. And I speak to people now on private prisons all over. And now that I have a voice, the private industry called me and asked me if I wanted to consult for them. I said, fuck no. Believe me, that's exactly what happened. I go, this is great. Right when they think you have a voice. If you're a nobody and you're talking, oh, they don't give a shit. They'll walk over you. Once you have 1 million people that listen to you or whatever it is, would you like to consult with us and we'll give you money? They're paying me off. I said, no. Listen, I've been up and down and around. I made millions, lost millions, and you know what? I can't fucking vote. How bad is that? Because this state appealed the rule. But that's another whole issue. We're going to get back to the prison system and the criminal justice system. And I was talking to Mark outside. It was Mark, right? And we were talking about Republican, Democrat, and why I'm a registered Republican in this county, because you have to be if you want a primary vote. And it's sad because I am more of a libertarian than probably Ron Paul, because I believe do whatever you want, get out of my business, but be fiscally responsible. I don't care who you fuck, what drugs you do, who cares? Now, if you commit crime to get that drug, then you should be held accountable. But what you do in your own home is your own business, and I don't care who you marry, who you do, and stuff. And both parties want you to believe, no, hey, listen, we're the Republican Party, less government. Oh, but on abortion, you want them in my business on abortion? Or you want them on religious rights? Or whatever, or the Democrats. Oh, we're a liberal, but no, wait a minute. Watch the money. I don't get it. They both talk out of both sides of their mouth. And it drives my dream would be for a party to become big enough that can wipe these two parties out. And we know it's all about money, and we can get into all that later. But anyway, looking back at any Republican I see, and my goal is, why won't you? Okay, give an answer. I don't know if anybody lives in this county. The sheriff in this county refused to release his budget. Hello? I give you money to run the jail, run whatever you're going to do, and you're not going to show me how you spend it. That's great. Give Larry $140 million, I'll tell you I did good. And it blows my mind how Republicans could support that. You know, it used to be the Republican Party used to be about transparency and fiscal responsibility. That went out the fucking window. And it just drives me crazy. There's no transparency. There's no helping a veteran at the jail. And they just blindly support people. So the reason I said I'd speak here is because I like the Libertarian Party. I think they're independent thinkers. I think most of these people here believe in kind of what I believe in. Listen, let me do what I want. Don't spend my money like a drunken sailor, because I'm giving it to you. But that's not how. So I'm going to get into now how we can fix the jail for nothing. Fix the whole prison system for nothing. For nothing! People are going to go, what do you mean? Okay. I did this on my radio show. We take myself, a warden, a guard, a civilian, a nurse, and any citizen in here, and I make teams. How do we pay for that team? There's contractors in the jails and the prisons that do the medicine, do the medical. And I'm not even talking private prisons, I'm talking about the regular prison system. We make them pay just for those teams. Whatever salaries, whatever they did. I don't care if it's $5 million a team, they get $100 million contracts, it's nothing, $5 million. Here's what has to happen. The powers that be, and this is your problem, have to say, Larry, your team can go into any prison or jail it wants, unannounced, and inspect that jail. And when you inspect that jail, if you find something, you write a report, we give that person, whoever administers it, whether it's a sheriff or a jail administrator or a warden, time to fix it, and we can do. Here's what'll happen. The first time I go down on a Sunday, someone's gonna refuse me entry. And that person has to be fired. The word will get around the system, holy shit, you better let them in. Let me tell you why. I have friends around here. There is a guard, and I know him, and this happened many times. They have filters at this jail that say for inspection only. Think what I just said. They have filters that say for inspection only. That means they're having $5 filters they don't want to use to keep the air clean or whatever, only during inspections. And they put them the opposite way so that the inspectors don't see. Now this is, listen, I had a picture of this. I couldn't believe it. I said, so if they're saving 20 filters at $5 a filter at $100, what else are they doing? This jail don't even give women. This is why I got on the jail case right here. In this jail, they don't give women sanitary. Think what I just said. You heard that.
I saw the article, there was a full investigation.
Listen what I just said. I have a 25-year-old daughter. I can't imagine her, well, imagine her making a mistake. You all do. But no, I can't imagine my daughter getting arrested for something stupid, whatever it is, being on her time of the month, and going to jail, and not being taken care of. I heard stories, you know, I run a program called the Reality Check Program, and it's administered in some areas by court systems. I don't know where you're from, in like West Palm Beach or Fort Lauderdale. They actually sentence people to my program. It's called the Reality Check Program, and it's a 4-part program. They can get to watch it and all that. It's perfect for now. But I can't even fathom the amount, I can't even tell you how many people came to me and told us about that. And when I think of that, I look at one, the person who did that to him, and the policy that did it to him. Because if I ran a jail and somebody did that to any human being, they wouldn't be, you know, obviously they wouldn't be working here or working anywhere. So I don't get why people just blindly support things without looking into it. You know, Mark and the young lady where I was saying, we are in an age where you can get real information. And don't stop fake news, or whatever freaking news. Go to another one, go to another one. Parent, come on. I mean, you can do as much research as you want. Don't go down the rabbit hole of just everything you want. Go to where it is. Read the opposite. And you will see things that will blow you away, and then you wonder why the people are blindly following. It drives me up a wall. I know people are intelligent. I'm not talking about illiterate people. I'm not talking about people who have zero education, or I'm talking about regular educated people who are easily led and easily manipulated, so to speak. And that drives me nuts. So if we take the prison system, if we put in teams into the prison system, here's what would happen. It's not a get you. It's not I got you. It's a way to fix the system. Because when I was in prison, it was the biggest joke. They have a thing called the ACA, American Accreditation Association. What bullshit. They come, they tell the prison, okay, in 2 weeks we're coming there. All of a sudden the warden's cleaning it, painting it. The day they come, we got real food. I said, holy shit, oh good. We got to eat. But it was crazy because it was all bullshit. And then what they did was they take the inmates just did 10 years of prison. I did 12. You take, he does it again. 10 years of prison. Trust me, he's aging out of crime. Most people age out. Now there are those who don't, and some of the people obviously who become violent or something of that nature, you have to handle it differently. But what we have done is we put everybody into a box. I look at some of the young faces around here, and I look at you and I say, I know right now, if you were in a car and a friend of yours had a kilo of cocaine in that car, that is a 20-year life sentence. Over 500 grams is 5 to 10. Over a key is 10 to life. 10 to life. Now, is he supposed to have a kilo of coke? No. But is he murdering? Is he going to do it? And trust me, they will put you in jail and make you give up your soul, to do everything, to blame that guy, to tell on that guy, to do everything in the world. It's the way our system is built. And it's wrong. Because I went to prison for not telling. I was offered 3 years in prison for giving up people, and I just wouldn't do it. And I was facing life at the time. I ended up getting 4 12-year sentence. And people ask me, why? Did you worry about getting killed? No, I was the kind of the wild guy. I was the muscle, if you want to call it. It's not that. It was just because I grew up that way. It was something that happened. But today they're making these kids flip. They're giving them 20, 30-year sentences for things that's wrong. Yes. How many people in this room are being prison? I guarantee every one of you. I was speaking at an event in Maryland, and I went to this, and it's a big room, 300 people. And someone goes, I never did anything wrong to go to jail. I said, oh, really? I said, you ever drive 20 miles an hour to limit? Well, maybe passing someone. I said, well, if you killed somebody, that's to hit your homicide. You're my cellie, and you'll get fucked. Even my dad knows. But he kind of looked at me like, you know, what is he really? My point is, everybody in this room has done something to go to prison. And I'm not looking at anybody being the same thing, but everybody, I believe most people have good hearts, good intentions. We make bad choices. That's life. And I look at the system and I say, wow, how can we fix the system? Now, obviously, to jump start ahead of the prison system, I started that reality check program to keep kids from going in the first place. And we have the highest success rate in the country. 90% of the kids that went to my program. 70% have better attitudes, despite a parent. 43% have better school grades, and 30% have better school attendance. And I still do it. I have a video program. I only do like programs now and then because of time and stuff. But I look at that's the basis of what I do because I saw the destruction when they get there. And here's the scenario you got to remember when you leave. Here's a 20-year-old kid. He's gone. Whatever. He got hooked on drugs. So what does he do? He says, let me go rob a bank and get money from drugs. No, I'm not saying he's that at all. Rob something. So he robs a bank. He don't use a gun. He uses a note. He's not violent. But here's what he does. 20 years old, goes into the bank, gives him a note, says, I'll give you the money, whatever, kill you, boom. They catch him. They give him 5 years in prison. Great, 5 years in prison. Now, what they don't do is this. The kid gets sent to prison for 5 years, and they never, ever address his drug problem. So what happens? You notice more drugs in prison than on the street. And people go, what do you mean? Listen, when I was in prison, you want heroin? Go on a cell. You want coke? Third cell. You want alcohol? Read my book. Read some of my videos. I talk about my acid days. I've done every drug in the book. Some of them in prison. But everything you want is in a room this size. It's a cell block and everything in a room. So right now, maybe someone knows where they get heroin, but they got to go 3 blocks. In prison, you do 3 cells. So now you've got a kid who's 20 years old, comes to prison, he's scared, he hooks up with the people, and they know what's going on, and they hook him into his little crew. And now, they got him on drugs and he can't pay. He calls his mom, calls friends, oh, just send me 100 or send it to this guy. I consult with family and tell them what not to do, the signs and all that. they'll curse their morning. I tell them not to say fuck. I really did. She goes, what? Just say the word fuck. Stop that. And I'm always messing with my mom trying to keep her young. But my point is, this is a lady who sees what's going on. 88 years old. And you know what she used to say when I was in prison? She goes, son, why did you get so much time? You didn't kill anybody. You robbed the jeweler. Yes, you did it. But this child molesters for 5 years. Why did you get so much time? And I said, Mom, the system is so broke. She goes, if you do anything in your life, try to fix the system. My mother. So part of why I like to do what I do. With that said, I will take some questions, because I always get questions. And you can listen, I just told you I hit a knife up my ass. You can answer any question you want. Yeah. No, the first. Go ahead.
On decriminalizing drugs.
Absolutely.
How many prisoners, how many people would not be sent to prison, in your estimation?
At least 40%.
40.
At least.
So the amount of hours you think.
More, at least 40%. I was in prisons where they had like a big drug dealers. Most county jails, most state jails are minor bullshit drug charges. Feds, we were the big boys. And you know, I used to get kicked at people that used to say, oh, I'd rather be in state jail than feds. No, you don't have to vote. Let me tell you something. When you're in the feds, they don't give a shit. They will put you on a plane. I was with Nicky Scarfo, Victor Reed, a mob boss. And they don't give a shit who you are, how much money you have. This is the federal government. In state jails, you can maneuver. If you go on to watch if you'd like to watch a video, go on my channel with I actually interviewed a guard that used to guard me. And the guard went to prison himself for smuggling cigarettes and creatinine into prison. He was 18 years, and he did it because he needed money. He needed money for his mother's cancer. And they put him in jail for a year. He's a great guy. I speak to him, and he was my guard. He actually found me when I taught him how to make prison pasta. We call it prison pasta with two metal covers and boil water. Hope there's no electric in here because I got yelled at online by electricians. Somebody burnt their house down today. But I made prison pasta. But it showed me because when I was in the feds, they're really brutal. And I hate to say it, our system is broke. But if we could change the law, I believe in this. I've done every drug, I don't do drugs, but I believe it should be a person's choice. And as now again, if you commit a crime for it, then you can go down. But what you do behind your door, I don't give a shit. And nobody should give a shit. Oregon just passed the decriminalization law in Oregon. And I heard it's working. But before, just to let you know, Sweden and Norway have done it, and they're doing very well. Their crime went down, and their recidivism is down.
Oregon just passed it.
Just passed it,
They
sorry.
just passed it a few days ago,
Right.
so there's a start.
We'll go to the question.
Yeah, I did have a question. First of all, thank you very much for coming. Huge fan of your channel.
Thank you.
It took me a second, but I recognized everything now. But thank you so much for what you're doing. I have two questions, one here and one, if it's possible, to follow up later, so you can talk outside. I'm a non-immigrant visitor from another country. I sponsored myself, and from a Middle Eastern country. And the situation when it comes to human rights there is abysmal, very, very abysmal. And I wanted to sort of like compare notes regarding the prison system, because we get a lot of horror stories from there. My family still lives there, and they're sharing articles and stuff, and some of them are real, about the prison situation there. My question was very simple. During those inspections, do they sometimes replace the inmates entirely, bring in an entire cast of
No.
polished inmates? Because they crossed that line over there.
No, well, just to let you know, in
Yeah.
preparing prison, couple studies done.
Sure.
United States compared to non-third world countries,
Yes,
that's what we talk.
exactly.
France, England, Germany, Canada has the worst prison system, not only in numbers, in humanity system. It's a terrible study. You can
Thank you again, Larry. We appreciate you. And a reminder of the importance of our work, the things we do, and libertarians are elected folks, so involved in the process. You can make a change, you can make a difference, you can make things happen. And good luck, guys. Thank you, Larry. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming. So we appreciate Larry for coming, and what an amazing story. What an amazing story. And he's not the only one. There's many of the people like that with their own stories when it comes to criminal justice reform, when it comes to prison reform. I remember when I was younger, I would always make it a school every police would pull me over. I was a young guy, I like to drive nice cars, and I would always get pulled over. I got pulled over so many times when I was young. I remember getting pulled over by a minivan with two cops with machine guns and bulletproof vests. And we were coming back from the cross store. We went to go buy sports supplies. We get pulled over, and these guys are there. What are you guys doing? Where are you guys going? Why'd you pull me over? Oh, you ran a stoplight. Oh, you didn't. Yeah, you ran a stoplight. Another time. Why'd you pull me over? Oh, window tint. Meanwhile, I had 20 cops, dogs, et cetera, et cetera. We're all pulled out up against the hood, waiting for them to search the car. The dogs jump against the car. They found nothing in the car. So what's the point of the dogs? It's a false positive. So on and on and on. I remember always, messing with the cops, not messing with them, but knowing my rights. And it would piss them off sometimes. So it's important as libertarians to know your rights, to know what it is the cops can do, what they can't do, because everybody's got stories. And you see, this year was huge with, Black Lives Matter and George Floyd. I was actually at the George Floyd Memorial earlier this year, and I spoke with the folks there, and it was pretty emotional. It was pretty interesting with what went down. The cop and George Floyd, they actually had a relationship. They knew each other. There was some stuff there. But the reality is, in this country, we have a very prejudiced criminal justice system, especially if you're a young man. Person of color or minority, yes, but if you're a young man in this country, as many of you know, you get pulled over a lot. You get pulled over a lot, especially where you live, where you're at. So there's definitely a need, there's a presence for libertarian reform. Because as long as there's bad laws, there's going to be enforcement of those bad laws. As long as people can go to jail for smoking a joint, for having a plan, for whatever it is, nonviolent crimes, that's where our criminal justice system goes wrong. Because police reform this, police reform that. You can train the police better. You can teach them how to not de-escalate a situation. But why are they in these situations in the first place? Why you have to pull somebody over because of a broken tail light? Why can't you send a letter or mail? Why is that criminal? I got pulled over one time in Virginia, and I remember I was in a rental car. It was a hybrid Ford Focus. We're in the mountains. I'm going to pick up another vehicle. I'm going downhill. I'm not used to hills. I'm from Florida. I like driving on flat land. I drive a big, noisy pickup truck. And I couldn't hear the vehicle. There was nobody around me. I was doing 90 miles an hour, and all of a sudden I hit 45. And I remember seeing a cop hiding in the bushes, and so I look at the cop, I look at my speedometer, and I go, oh shit. I hit the brakes. Probably the wrong thing to do. He sees my taillights. He pulls me over. Cop comes out and says, I pulled you over? I said, I have an idea. He goes, how fast are you going? I say, I don't know, officer. He goes, you're going 90 to 45 or 55, whatever. He goes, in the state of Virginia, anything over 90 miles an hour is a felony. I can take you to prison right now. I say 59. Can we lower that? I'll say you're doing 88. So I got this for going 88 miles an hour. My only criminal record is speeding, non-violent crime. I had no idea. I really didn't. I didn't expect it. But imagine if there was a bad day, that cop could have ruined my life. I could have had a felony. I could have lost my franchise license. I could have lost my right to vote, my gun rights, everything for 2 miles an hour. So we have a wild, wild, wild criminal justice system. The lot of these books.
Steve, can I make one quick point on that over here?
Yeah.
Because I get in this discussion a lot with a lot of my fellow libertarians, and my take on it is, if you just legalize drugs, I think that's how we should present it, instead of going with what's in vogue right now.
Sure.
Police reform, jail reform, that would fix half the problems just with that one fix. I know that's very hard to do.
I got a quote
From my perspective, I think that's the way to go at it.
I got a quote, I didn't read it earlier. I was going to try to give you my introduction speech, but I'll read it now. Because to your point about not just going into what's in vogue, but actually being principled, I think this is a great quote. It's from my favorite author. His name is Roy May. He's an American existential psychologist. The quote is, "Every human being must have a point at which he stands against the culture, where he says, this is me and the damn world can go to hell." And I think as libertarians, we know where we stand, we know what we're about. For 50 years, we've been for gay marriage, for basically getting government out of marriage. Just now in the last 10 years, we've seen that. We've seen the war on drugs fail in every battle it's been on. We've held those ideas for the last 50 years beyond. So these ideas are probably becoming mainstream. Libertarians, we are winning the culture with this. At my Dairy Queen, when I first opened, there's a big age gap between me and my little sister. She was in high school at the time. And she tells me, oh, when we hired a lot of high school kids, well, my friend's he's a libertarian. Oh, really? Oh, meet my brother. Oh, hi, how are you? Oh, I'm a libertarian. You have friends who are libertarians? Yeah, I got friends. We're all libertarians. This is when I was in high school. Oh, my God. I didn't even know what a libertarian was until I got to college. When I first met another libertarian, it was like Sasquatch being another Sasquatch. I couldn't believe it. Like, oh, my God, you think this? There's more of us. Wow, this is great. So, the point of that is, we are winning the culture war. The other point is that we are the cavalry. Help's not coming. This is all we got. So we need to work together. We got to make headway. We got to spread the message any way we can. We've got radical candidates like Davey out there spreading the message. We've got a lot of folks. I mean, we won a lot of elections this year. Maybe not all in Florida, but I was speaking to a gentleman from Tennessee, and they won. I know he was a campaign manager for 5 campaigns. I don't know their vote totals completely, how many campaigns they won, but he won at least 5 of his 5 campaigns. They all won. Trista Butler, she won in a 6-way race, and a lot of hard-fought battles. Just in Region 2, there's a lot of opportunity for libertarians to win and change policy. So we got to continue. People rely on us, and brings back another point. I still have these books I want to give away, and I don't want to go home with them. So if you donate today, you get a copy of 48 Laws of Power. There's a lot of good stuff in here. It's not only about power, but how to protect yourself from power. Yes, this is somewhat of a Machiavellian kind of book, actually. However, it's how you apply it, how you apply the laws of power. What you gain out of this book is very important because as libertarians, we don't want to gain power because of power's sake. We want to gain power, then we want to get rid of that power. We want to downsize government, we want to give the power back to the people. You have to understand power. You have to understand how the game works. You have to understand the laws to apply to yourself because you have to understand how to play the game. So, if you donate to the party today, you get a free copy of the book, in-kind donation. I think John Thompson, you get a copy because he became a recurring donor. We have another copy, all right. 2 copies, all right. So that's 2, 1, okay. So that's 2 copies total. I've got 8 copies of the book. Is anybody else going to pledge to donate today? By the way, I am going to be pledging $100 a month recurring donations to the party to get us closer to the $2,500 a month goal. So if anybody else would like to pledge today, recurring donation or even a one-time donation, I want to give these books away. I also want to hear what you get out of it. So is there anybody else that would like to donate today, either recurring or a one-time donation? Mr. Rodriguez, all right. And Mr. Groves, all right. So that's 4 books total. I got 4 more. Can we get at least 4 more people reaching their pockets? Either recurring donation, those monthly recurring donations, they matter a lot because in the committees can go and we make budgets and we can say, all right, we've got this much money in the recurring donations every month, so we can budget this amount. So who else would like to donate today? Anybody else? Anybody else like to get us closer to the $2,500 goal or a one-time donation? Or if you increase your donation. If you increase it $5. Yeah? Anybody else? I'll ask again later. Miss Alicia Slafter? One time? All right, awesome. All right. What's that? You can come to me in a little bit. Yeah. All right. Well, I do want, where is that? Is DL in the room? There he is. All right, so DL is our next speaker, and he's going to be, he has a presentation for us. So Mr. DL Cummings, the chairman of the DeVal County Libertarian Party, and DL also did us a great favor by getting us hooked up with the Green Party earlier last month, and really appreciate that. And he has something for us today, so Mr. DL Cummings, you have the floor, sir. Whoopsie.
Get plugged in here.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Set it up here. See what we got here. Where's the mouse go? Hello. Didn't like that. Hello. That's weird. Yep.
I've got a lead on the guy who wants to run for city council.
Okay, that sounds great. This is weird. Chaz, is that plugged in over there, Chaz? Okay, let me try plugging it in one more time here. Seems to not be cooperating. Well, that's going to be a lot of fun. Oh, there we go. All right. All right. Minimize that. Okay. And then let's see about. See if we. So. Hello. Almost there? Okay, perfect. All right. Move this a little bit closer here. Everybody hear me all right? You know what? Let's take this off so I can Oh, I'm sorry, what?
I've got plenty of wireless mics. That's why I was asking.
Oh, okay.
Be locked down.
All right, test. All right, perfect. All right, there we are. Well, that was a great speech by Mr. Lawton, and I didn't realize we had all these felons in here. But what I can say, interestingly enough, when I was listening to his speech, is that at 5'3" and 120 pounds, soaking wet, it is my goal in life to never, ever see prison or jail or any of those places, because I'm pretty sure that I may have even a few more horrendous stories than he would. But I'm definitely glad to be here. And when I started talking to Stephen, he asked me, he was like, or I'm not even sure how the conversation came up about me speaking, but I said, well, what do you want me to speak about? And he said, something that you're passionate about. And if you know me, I'm generally pretty passionate about communication. And so I started thinking, well, what should I talk about? How should I narrow the focus? And one of the big things that I always am concerned about is what's going to be the title. I like something kind of snazzy, something interesting. And so I came up with, are we moving here? Hello? Being uncooperative. Goodness. I see that technology is not on my side today. There we go. I came up with radically boring. And as titles for presentations go, I think that including the word boring is generally a bad idea. But I like a challenge. And so let me tell you about the origin of radically boring. This is a picture of me and my son. He's 21 months old. And you can't tell by the picture, but this was 2 months ago up in Hilton Head, and just minutes before this picture, he fell and hit his head on the concrete. And you can't see it in the picture because his hair's covering it, but he was pretty upset about that. But as you can see, he has bounced back very well. And Zach is very healthy. He's active, and he's actually getting to the point now where he's extremely ornery. I'm starting to say, dear mom in heaven,
I'm so sorry. And then today at lunch, my wife texted me and she said, congratulations, your son is able to climb out of the bed and go down the stairs. So I think the fun is really getting ready to begin. So, but the origin of this, of my title, goes back to my wife's pregnancy. And as parents go, we're a bit on the late bloomer side, okay? And because he's 21 months old, I'm 42 now, and my wife is, was, and always will be 30. And the doctors looked at her and they said, well, because of your age, you are in a high-risk category. And so we ended up having to see a regular prenatal doctor and a high-risk prenatal doctor, and we had to see them quite frequently. And each visit, they would constantly ask like this long litany of questions. They would say, you know, how's your blood pressure? Or they would take it. You know, they'd check her weight, and they would blood sugar, and all these other things. And one day, I was getting kind of bored going through the same routine, and I just kind of blurted out. I said, she's medically boring. And medically boring is where I come up with this idea, because medically boring, for me, translates into radically boring when it comes to communication. And I love definitions when it comes to communication because it allows you to make sure that the other person understands exactly what you are trying to communicate. So when I say medically boring, what I mean is that your health is within some range for predictable and desired results. Pretty simple. And if I reword that just a little bit, radically boring becomes communication within a range for predictable and desired results. Now, I want to talk about what radically boring isn't and what it is. So let's start with what it isn't. It's not watered down. And again, with the definitions, when I say watered down, what I mean is it's not weaker or less forceful than its original form. An example, if I were to say taxation is theft, most of you, if not all of you, would agree. But then if I turn around and I start making an exception for this tax or that tax, and then I started justifying why maybe those taxes are a little on the different side, now I'm getting into watering it down. Because taxation is theft doesn't leave a lot of room for doing that kind of a thing. And so what radically boring for me is more like the right cup of coffee. In my house, it's me, my wife, and my mother-in-law. I like my coffee black, just plain black. My wife likes it with a little bit of creamer. And my wife's mother, my mother-in-law, she likes it with creamer and probably a little bit of sugar, because she likes sugar in practically everything. But here's the thing, all 3 cups are still coffee. And so let me ask a question here real quick. If I take a cup of espresso, and then I have another cup, same cup, same thing, and I take the second cup and I pour it inside a glass of hot water, a cup of hot water, which one is weaker? The espresso or the espresso with water? Nobody? I would assume that most people would say the one with water in it. But here's the thing, here's how I'm looking at it. Both of them have the same caffeine content. And as a general rule of thumb, most people drink coffee for the caffeine, and then they flavor it to their liking. And so I kind of equate the caffeine being the message, and the flavor, how you dress it up, as the delivery. So let's explore this a little bit more. I've been watching this show on Amazon Prime. It's called Testing Milton Friedman. And you can find it if you have an Amazon Prime account. It's free to watch. You don't have to have any additional packages. And the very first one is titled Equality of Opportunity. And it has a number of people in it, but it has Walter Williams, who many of you may recognize, the the notable economist, and then Shika Dalmia from the Reason Foundation. And in this particular episode, what they're doing is they're watching a few clips from some old videos of Milton Friedman, and then they all get together and they kind of discuss, their thoughts on the matter. And in one particular clip, they're talking about Milton Friedman and his position on taxing people. And Shika makes the point that Friedman had once conceded that when you have distress in a society, that the society has a responsibility to do something, and that it's okay. And then she goes on to say that redistribution for its own sake, that is, taxing wealthy people just because they're wealthy, is not okay. And then Williams jumps in, and he says, well, where's that money going to come from? And then he says something very interesting. He said, what I find pretty offensive about many of these programs is the forcible use of one person to serve the purposes of another. I think that's immoral. I agree. And if libertarianism is rooted in the individual, which I think it is, then the right cup of coffee might look a little something like this, where we say taxation is theft, and that's equivalent to our espresso. And then, but if we word it like Dr. Williams said, and we say, well, it's the forcible use of one person to serve another, then that might be our Americano. And then if we speak it in the way that Shika Dalmia had said, where she said, hey, and I don't know if I wasn't quite clear whether she was agreeing or not with Friedman's position, but if we dress it up in those same words and say, well, if others need it, if they're in distress, then some taxes are okay. Well, I think that is when we start getting into a more diluted message. And so I think what I want to be clear is that we need to be clear what being watered down means and what it doesn't mean. And what it isn't, oh, excuse me, I'm losing my place here a little bit. And so when I look at radically boring, what I see it's a radical message plus effective communication. So let me tell you a little story real quick. Before my mother-in-law came to live with us and before our son was born, we had Airbnb at the house. And we were renting out a couple of the rooms, and we did that for about 2.5 to maybe 3 years. And I have this counter. It's a peninsula. It's about 7 foot long. And at that counter, I jokingly call it my safe space counter. And what I mean by that is when friends come over, when people were visiting through Airbnb, this was the counter to speak your mind and just say whatever it is that was on your mind. And whatever you said was between you and me and the counter. And I've had friends that have said, hey, look, this needs not to go any further than this counter, right? And it's also a place for me when I'm not being professional to cut up and be a bit obscene and maybe even use some profanity, but that's beside the point. And I've had hundreds of conversations. Most of them are about liberty. Real estate comes in a close second. And my goal when I have these conversations is to hear why people believe what they do, and then I want to leave them with something to think about. That's it. I'm not necessarily trying to convince them of anything. What I'm trying to do is just listen and then say, okay, now that I've heard them and I know exactly what I believe, I want to leave them with something to think about. Because I don't believe that I will likely ever convince somebody to change their mind, especially if they hold an idea very strongly. Now, in thinking about some of the conversations that I've had over time, I asked a couple of friends their thoughts about interacting with me and with libertarians. And I said, hey, would you guys be willing to send me some responses and, so that I could read them for my presentation? And they both agreed. And it was really great because I wasn't expecting that. So the first one is my friend. He was talking about his experience with libertarians. So here's what he said. He said, my experience with libertarians has been generally good. I share many of their principles and beliefs, and I believe I have a strong understanding of their platform. There are two potential frustrations that I am alert to when interacting. The good, they're principled. But the bad is they're dogmatically so. And then he goes on and he said, some mistake adherence to slogans and strict phrasing for being principled. Consequently, semantics often undercut their ability to objectively examine a line of thinking that superficially conflicts with a favored idiom. Personally, I periodically drop out of conversations that become more about navigating semantics than they are about effectively exchanging and evaluating ideas. His second frustration is that libertarians do strive for objectivity, but they often wrongly believe that they've achieved it. And so he continues on saying, previous conversations with libertarians have left me with the impression that they sometimes believe they are objectively correct, and any disagreement is evidence their point is not accurately understood or that their audience is unreasonable. It makes the bulk of the conversation flow in a single direction with redundant, if rephrased, points. So just take a look here. I mean, this is a great summary. He's saying, like, you don't have to tell me or tell anybody how principled you are. I get it. And in fact, when you start talking about how principled you are, when you're so focused on being principled, you come across as dogmatic. And then he says, hey, I get it. You really strive to be objective. But sometimes you guys wrongly believe that you actually achieved it because you're not objectively evaluating whether or not, in the course of the conversation, you remain so. Now, my other friend, he wrote about me. And let me tell you, he was extremely generous, okay? More generous than I definitely anticipated. Oops. Back up here. So here's what he said. In discussing politics, DL raises carefully considered, measured arguments that carry logical weight. Swear to God he said that. Told you he was very generous, okay? Continuing on. He listens carefully to other points of view, especially when challenged on his own point of view. Now, I'm going to stop here and just tell you, if my wife was here listening to this, and if this was a courtroom, she would raise an objection on the grounds that he was badgering reality, okay? Again, this is very generous, but I think it's very good because it's going to fit in with what I have to say here in just a moment. So continuing on, he says, I appreciate most that DL is open-minded about almost all position in politics. By being willing to listen to others, he includes them in his own ideas. By considering their points of view without anger and with reasonable standards for evidence, he is able to understand where others are coming from. I swear to God, I'm almost done with this. This is crazy. It's almost embarrassing for me a little bit. He continues on and he says, I also appreciate that when it comes to high energy issues, DL will willingly engage in high energy conversation. However, he does not allow himself to be drawn into ad hominem or straw man attacks, and he is above making such attacks in his own presentation. And he's still going to be your friend after. Now that's the part that's not actually embellished, that very last line there. And it's great that I get such an honest compliment. And I do believe that my friend was being honest, even if it was a little bit generous. And it's very, very flattering. And it makes me want to strut like I'm a terrier at a Westminster dog show. But what if everything my friend said was the standard, was what just was expected? Like, that's how people describe libertarians. Imagine if how non-libertarians described interacting with us, imagine if that played a role in what it meant to be a real libertarian. One more friend I'd like to talk about who's not giving out glowing recitations about me. He sent me a message kind of out of the blue back in May. And this was his message. He said, tell me about Joe. I want to believe. Literally all he sent. So I started talking to him about what I knew, I sent him an NPR interview that I had heard that I thought she had done pretty well on. I then sent him an interview, her interview on Tom Wood's show, and we spent a few minutes just in conversation, and I identified what I thought were some strengths and some weaknesses, and so on and so forth. And during the conversation, he said this: I never thought of the libertarian ideology as a moderate compromise between liberalism and conservatism, but it seems to be the only viable option right now. And then I said, the key is for us to communicate this to everyday people in a way that's, communicate to everyday people that it's really the only viable option, no matter how radical it seems. And he said, I think you're right. Now this was a bit of a surprise because I haven't spoken to this friend about politics in quite some time, and so I hadn't been following him, so I didn't really know where he was. But what I remember of him was not somebody that would say the libertarian ideology is the only viable option, just not something that I remember. And then, remember that was back in May, and then in mid-July, he sent this photo. So he joined the party. Now, did he join it because of me? No, I seriously doubt it. He had previously said that he felt it was the only viable option. And I think the reason that he said that is because the radical message did not run him off. But what I think happens is that most people don't see libertarians as the only viable option. They don't see freedom, as we understand it, as the only viable option. So I have a question that I'm going to ask everybody. I'm going to prepare you for it's a really simple question. But I want to lay the groundwork really quick. 4 people, at least, it might have been more, at least 4 people during this election reached out to me to ask me specifically my opinion on either the libertarian candidate or the amendments that were on the ballot, particularly the amendments that were in the state of Florida. And when I say they reached out, I mean they reached out of the clear blue. It wasn't in the middle of a conversation. It wasn't that we were already talking about something or that they had jumped in some thread somewhere. It was literally they messaged me personally to ask me something. So I want to ask people here, how many people this election had one person reach out in the same way? How many had 3? 5 or more? Hands are coming down a little bit, right? And it's okay. There are 650,000 registered libertarians that we know about, because I think only 31 states actually report that information. If we multiply 5, just 5 times 650,000, that's 3.25 million votes that people may be coming to us to ask about, right? I'm not talking about necessarily they voted for the libertarian candidate. I'm talking about their interaction with us was such that they said, I don't know about this, let me ask so-and-so. In 2018, a fellow libertarian, and I really only joined the party in 2017, okay? Before that, I was kind of like, oh, I don't really know what I am. I'm an independent, but libertarianism seems kind of great. But then there's that weirdo down in Orlando that drinks blood or whatever it is that he's doing. So I was really kind of turned off, and I stayed away, right? Because it was a bit weird to me. But I voted for Gary Johnson in 2016 because I was kind of working my way toward the Libertarian Party. And in 2018, I had a friend say to me, he said, when I first heard Gary Johnson speak, I knew he wasn't a real libertarian. Now, I could have argued and said, well, what about this, or what about this, or did you consider that? But instead, I simply asked him one simple question. I said, how many of your friends would say the same thing? And when I mean your friends, I mean your non-libertarian friends, not your libertarian friends. Our friends and family who interact with us on a regular basis should have a decent idea what libertarian is all about, or libertarianism. If they don't, it's our fault. It's not the candidate's fault. It's not the affiliate, state, or national chair's fault. It's ours. If those around us aren't reaching out for clarity on issues or candidates, that is our fault. Especially in this last election where it was highly contentious and it seemed like a lot of people really did want something else. So let me kind of start wrapping this idea of radically boring up. You don't want to water down the message. Remember, I was talking about that whole cup of coffee. You want to keep the caffeine level, whatever that caffeine level is for you, okay? Davey was a good example. He ran on taxation is theft as a tax collector. Like, that seems pretty radical to me, right? And he got 17% of the vote. And we want to recognize, while we're doing this, the type of, quote, coffee that is appropriate for the person that we're talking with. And this is done by knowing your audience. You know your audience, like Jim Turney said earlier, through listening and a learning attitude. Because by doing that, it tells you what they understand and what they don't about libertarian ideas. It also tells you what they need to hear in order to accept our ideas. In all my conversations with friends, one of the things that I've kind of noticed, and most of my conversations with friends, most of my friends are non-libertarians, the ones that I interact with on a regular basis, they're not libertarians. They range the gamut. Some of them are conservative, some of them are more progressive. I mean, they're all over the place. And in all my conversations, I think I've come to a conclusion that whether it's minarchism or anarchism or some other variant, for them, it's all radical. Decriminalizing drugs, radical. Sex work as work, radical. AR-15s in every home, that's really radical. Roads, yeah, that's radical too. Like, I hear that all the time, like he said, you know, they wanted to talk about the roads. But what shouldn't be radical is how we communicate the message. We need to understand where people are coming from. And that's kind of boring. It's not really exciting. It's not radical. We need to address their positions and concerns as they understand them. That's also kind of boring. And we need to not be dogmatic. That's also not boring. It's just, you know, it's not very lively. It doesn't, you know, it seems kind of like, okay, well, I just had a normal, rational, boring conversation with them. But I think that is how we communicate a radical message. And so what I want to leave you with today is I want to encourage you to go about your lives, and when you're interacting with non-libertarians, I encourage you to be radically boring. Don't shy away from ideas that you might think are radical, which most of us generally don't have a problem doing, but do seek to listen, understand, and be thought highly of by those you interact with. My friend that gave me the glowing, kind of, you know, very flattering response about interacting with me, that shouldn't be flattery at all. That should be what we expect. Like, if you're not doing that, if you're getting anything less, you're failing. Make the flattering of the description of me from my friend the gold standard for communication. Because as I see it, when you're radically boring, oops, hit the wrong button there. When you're radically boring, you're maximally effective. Thank you.
Great speech by D.L. Cummings.
And I really, really do appreciate and admire your giving to the party, your activism, the fruits of your labor, everything that every one of you does. Really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, and I want to thank you, and to our candidates, to our affiliate leaders, to all of you, thank you. And as we look forward to next year, we've got a grand vision. We've got a lot of work to do. We've got a strategy, so we're going to put our heads down and get to work. I've got a lot of work in front of me, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. And if any of you guys need to reach out to me with any questions, if you want to share your vision of the party, what I can do to serve you in my capacity as chair, please reach out to me. We're going to work together. Just want to say thank you again. And I hope to make a round trip around the state over the coming months and meet some of you at your affiliate meetings. And I'll be reaching out to the region reps, etc. Next time we'll be seeing each other, hopefully be sometime in the first quarter of next year, and then at our state convention. And we hope to do more meetings like these in person. I think it's important to get together, especially after COVID, where a lot of us weren't connecting and were missing that human connection. I think it's very important that we get to see each other in person to where we get most of the business done. And with that, I wish you all well. I look forward to seeing you. We'll continue to brush up on these in-person meetings. We've learned a lot today, and I do want to thank Jim Turney, Davey Parrish, and Chaz Sanders, as well as Mark Galobe for helping to put all the technical aspects of today's events on. And, oh,
If I can make an announcement.
yes, sir.
Many of you may not know this, but the first private astronauts are going to be shot from just a couple of miles away in less than 3 hours from right now, unless they come up with another delay.
If you don't like the...
Crew 1 of SpaceX, the first ever totally private astronauts, that's my understanding, it's
Yes.
totally private. This particular shot is the first one that's totally private. Private space is coming.
So if you're...
There you go.
So
If
if
you
you...
stay right in front of the hotel, you should be able to get a pretty good view of it. So just so people
Yes.
know that that's...
If you head down to the beach, I hear that's where the action is. You can see the rocket take off, and ask if it's not too late to hitch a ride. I heard they are building a private
It's really
Mars colony.
jammed down there. So be aware that even if you stay here for the space, you're going to be in mega traffic. There's 500,000 people in town for this. So that's the estimate, 500,000. We're just on slightly outside that bubble on this side of the interstate. So just be aware, if you try to get closer, could be tough to park, could be, maybe, I don't know the scene, but 500,000 people are over there.
Does anybody have any announcements they want to make before we go? Any other announcements? All right. If not, go in peace, be well, and I'll see you next time. Thank you all.